welcome to Guardians of Salesforce, the podcast where we cut through the noise to talk honestly about securing Salesforce in the real world. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Raj Patel, and today we're digging into a space where the stakes can't be any higher, protecting sensitive data in the age of AI, particularly data related to healthcare and life sciences. With AI transforming everything from patient discovery to drug discovery, the industry's reliance on Salesforce is deeper than ever, but so are the risks. Breaches in the sector just don't mean lost data. They could put lives at risk. They can do reputational damage. And so while Salesforce offers world-class native security, too many organizations still overlook what we call the shared responsibility model. And I think Doug is going to talk about that. And that leaves critical gaps in protection. So how do we stay secure in this new AI-powered reality? To help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to be joined by Doug Cox. He's a seasoned Salesforce professional specializing in healthcare and life sciences. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Raj. It's really great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Terrific. So let's start with big picture. From your work in healthcare and life sciences, how are you seeing AI as it relates to Salesforce? How do you see that transforming those organizations?
Oh my gosh. Use cases are many. Our customers and our Salesforce friends are coming up with a lot of different use cases for healthcare. Specifically things like, healthcare trial recruitment, where we can auto match eligible candidates for clinical studies based upon some predefined criteria, things like appointments, the very basic appointments, scheduling, rescheduling, cancel, vaccinations, consultation appointments, things like that. Even things like care coordination, where we can identify and assess outliers and auto-generate care plans and patient medical summaries. So we have a lot of different use cases out here, not just for healthcare, but also for life science as well. So, it's being embraced very kind of a little bit slowly as, we kind of guessed, but we're starting to see more and more use cases start to come to light.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about, patient care, if you think about all of those types of things, everything you've mentioned has always been done. It's just been done slowly, maybe not as efficiently. A lot of paper trails, physical paper trails, things like that. So with AI, I assume, you're talking about more operational efficiencies, enhanced patient care and even personalized treatments for patients. And just the automation and the workflow optimization, I think, is where AI fits in. And with that, there's a lot of autonomous workflows where humans don't necessarily need to get involved. It's one of those set it and forget it type of things. How are you seeing that being implemented across your customer base?
Well, it's being implemented, definitely. What our customers really like about what we do at Salesforce is the visibility into the process, right? Yeah, sure, those things are running autonomously, but we have visibility into what they're doing and what they've done and how they've answered their questions, that type of thing. So, they need, visibility, but also they need, to be able to trust us. Right. Yeah. Moving forward. So that's a big part of it. And that trust is our number one, attribute here at Salesforce. So.
That Einstein trust layer. Yeah, I get that. So that brings me to my next question or comment. It's, I mentioned it in the intro. It's this shared responsibility model. It's a great framework, but it's often misunderstood, right? So you've got, in our view, where most organizations fall short when it comes to securing Salesforce. Can you speak a little bit about how, in your experience, what you've seen customers do and how they perform their security versus what Salesforce is doing?
There's a lot we do for our customers, especially when we start getting into the AI layer. You mentioned the Einstein trust layer, right? That's a big piece of this. This is something that we do for our customers. We're checking for toxicity. We're sending the data to a no store OpenAI where it'll be deleted quickly afterwards. Things like that for our customers. But it's really incumbent upon our customers to, and I'm probably going to say this about a dozen times during this conversation, but the follow least privilege implementation, right? It's about permissions. We're going to create an agent, say for, setting up, appointments, right? That agent should only have access to objects and data that deal with appointments, right? And maybe the customer data, right? So we actually inherit the customer's permissions, the person's permissions as executing the prompts. But least privilege is super important, and making sure that your agents have access to only what they should have access to is super important. Another thing that our customers, and we're really pushing our customers on, is something called data classification. We all live in this world of HIPAA, and our life sciences people live in the world of CFR, and it's important for our customers to be able to classify that HIPAA information so you know what you're dealing with, right? Not only to help with least privilege, right? But also for some of our other security products that we release in Salesforce that depend on classification to do things like data loss prevention, that type of thing. Now, finally, it's up to our customers to make sure, and this kind of dovetails into our conversation, to make sure that the data that they send up to, Salesforce has been protected or protected within Salesforce, right? And protected by, malware, right? Specific. But also now we're in this world of AI, we're getting into things like prompt injections, right? Being able to introduce, prompt injections into the prompt process, right? As some of you might know, you can actually embed those types of things into files, into PDFs. You can make them, you can set them up so you can't see them in the file, and they're ingestible, and they can then be ingested into the whole process. So it's up to our customers really to make sure that they make sure these files are checked out before they're sent into the system, because I can tell you a lot of the use cases I just called out will use files as part of Data Cloud.
Right. That unstructured data part of the data cloud, where, unstructured data is growing rapidly. And now with AI, you have an even greater chance of that unstructured data, harboring things like malware, or probably not being permissioned correctly, where unauthorized access is a huge deal. So
the good thing is now at Salesforce, we're living in a wonderful world of who sees what right now in Salesforce. We have the ability to not only on platform see what users have access to and what objects users have access to and what privileges they have, but also with our acquisition of Own, we're able to have more robust ability to classify data and things like that as well. So we're and also who sees what, very 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 full featured who sees what.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. I think you've touched on a couple of topics. One thing that I garnered from what you just said is the need for a multi-layered approach to security, right? Defense in depth, call it what you want, but it's essentially, protecting, every step of the data flow process. And so, when you talk about Data Cloud, you talk about Salesforce leveraging, agentic AI. The data originates in multiple locations, right? You can have data, unstructured data coming from the employee's laptop, or you can have it coming from another online repository. Right. You can have it being sent to you guys from like a vendor or a partner where you don't necessarily know what type of security controls they have in place. So if you think about the Salesforce ecosystem in general, it's just a large data set that is being leveraged by multiple players inputting data. So how does that defense in depth approach really apply to Salesforce with this Agent Force built into it?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this in the past, you and I, but it's important that that our customers set up some sort of repository to make sure that this data is staged and protected before it moves into data cloud. And I think, we just got finished talking to our customers about data being just updated, using the correct data, right? There's all these like, I don't know whether urban legends or what, but, where somebody had a file for an air flight to Asia for like $5 as a test. And they left it there, right? And the airline was incumbent to, honor that, transaction, right? But now we're into the world of now let's think about what's in those files, right? Let's think about what we're sending up and processing within the AI layer. So, it's important for our customers to be able to do that. Now, also, when it comes to defense in depth, it really comes to, the layered approach. We have several products that help our customers unwind that in specific things like, our security center tool, which can show posture management across all your orgs, right? To see who's been given permissions for different objects and report on that, and then get notified, what type of access they have, things like that, because that's part of the whole process too, right? Your least privilege as a user and the least privilege of the agent user as well, right, need to be kind of locked down and really make sure that they're accessing what they should actually see. It's important for our customers to be able to protect that data as well. If we're talking about healthcare, right? So HIPAA, it's going to get even stronger by the end of the year. HIPAA, the encryption requirement is going to get a lot stronger. It's going from addressable to required, right? So our customers are now kind of unraveling that whole thing. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help our customers protect their data straight up the stack until it gets up to the files in data cloud.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And there's a lot of native security tools that Salesforce provides. AI is just one of these things where it's the efficiency, the speed at which things can get done, the autonomous nature of these processes that companies are rolling out using Salesforce, using Einstein, using agentic AI. It's unlocks so many new opportunities, right? But it introduces tons of risk. What kinds of data security or compliance concerns are top of mind? I mean, I know you mentioned HIPAA. When it comes to Salesforce and AI in general, what are you seeing out there in terms of compliance concerns and just data security concerns overall? If you can just summarize that piece, what should they look out for?
They should look out for what they're actually sending through the process, right? What's going into OpenAI outside of our purview. We do have a SOC 2 to support OpenAI, and we trust them to be able to delete the data, but you have to kind of work with risk, right? In my world, and the risk is there, right? So let's be careful what we're putting there, right? Let's protect data, mask it. We have the ability to mask data within the prompt, right? AI prompts. We don't have the ability to mask within agents. The results were not exactly what we expected. Prompts are more testable, so you can get a kind of deterministic, response back every time. Prompts or agents are just a little bit different, right? You can start asking all kinds of crazy questions for them. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's something that our customers are concerned about. They're concerned about, signing BAAs. They're concerned about, where the data is going to exist, where it's going to end up in another country, that kind of thing. All the normal stuff, but kind of like amped up. Right. Because there's, people are just concerned, and we're building trust with our customers right now, day by day when it comes to agents and Agentforce and prompt builders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if companies are out there leveraging AI agents, I think the data masking piece is a big concern, like you pointed out, right? And so being able to sort of make sure that data doesn't get into the wrong hands, you've mentioned it, and these are trusted security measures that folks like us in the IT world have implemented for years. It's the least privilege, right? Making sure that these agents only have access to the data that they need to run these models, I assume, right? No unauthorized access, and that comes down to things like least privilege.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you think, bottom line, that companies should administer even before thinking about rolling out agents?
Sure. They need to kind of least privilege, of course. I'll just keep saying it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. That's
but really, the other thing that we're concerned about is the difference between public and private access, authenticated experience versus just going to a website and asking a question. Right. Where are you located? Awesome. Is there an appointment available? Okay. That's pretty benign, right? Can I get an appointment with this doctor who might be a cardiologist? Well, can you kind of expose the fact that now, you might have a health condition and what type of health condition that is, right? So maybe it's time to authenticate, right, at that point. So, authenticated, requests are some of those use cases that I was just mentioning before, right? They have to be. Right, because we're dealing with PHI. I don't want to go in and see Raj's stuff.
Right.
That just shouldn't happen. Right. So authentication is a really important piece to this, and we're kind of talking to our customers a lot about that. What should be authenticated? What should be an authenticated experience, and what should not? Right.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
So
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, in terms of looking ahead, what advice would you give to Salesforce admins or architects, whether they already have implemented Salesforce or are thinking about implementing Salesforce or transitioning from their legacy CRM tool into Salesforce, now that Salesforce has really made a huge push into agentic AI processes? Things that maybe these Salesforce admins did 5 to 7 years ago, maybe won't apply now, right? Yeah. So, what advice do you have for those folks that are out there listening?
Become an agent blazer. learn about agentic AI.
Sure.
One of the biggest things I can say is this: we're moving fast.
Yeah.
The AI is not mixed up in our, 3 times a year releases. We're just scrumming and just, we're releasing. We're moving through this very quickly, right?
Yeah.
And we're doing a really good job at letting our customers know exactly how things are changing. And a lot of things are changing and will make the admin's life easier, right? There is security stuff coming down the pike. There's a lot of, things that are kind of roadmapped out over the next, few months even, right? So it's important for admins to be able to keep an eye on that kind of stuff. And it's important for us, the Salesforce, to communicate out to our customers, what to expect, moving forward as well. Creating agents is relatively easy, right? But you need to be able to explain it. You need to be able to understand it. You need to have the visibility and understand what that all means. All the stuff that goes around the operational piece of it, or something that admins need to kind of get their hands on. And we're doing a good job at letting them know, and it's up to them to ingest that information that we're sending out to help them along.
No, yeah, makes sense. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? It's easy to create an AI agent, right? Push of a button almost, right? It's that autonomous. The issue is you want to make sure that the underlying security that you have built into the platform is at the point where you can push that button, create the agent, and you won't have security gaps in place, because when you have these agents and how they run and how autonomous they are, it could be several days or weeks before you see these security gaps kind of come to the top, right? Unless you really have the foundational security in place. So,
definitely. We're really working for that right now. And even to the point where right around Dreamforce time, our product management managers for our security tools are going to be releasing an agentic security tool where Love the ability to read, security center data, which shows you security posture, and also event monitoring data. So you can potentially say, hey, 10 people were given, modify all underneath this profile that's for agents, right?
That's great.
Now, oh my gosh, let's see if anybody did anything with that. So we can ask questions. 10 people got modify all. What did they do with it over the last 12 hours? And then the agent will spit out the information. So there's a lot of goodness coming from the security side as well.
Awesome. Is that going to be rolled up into Shield or?
Forward-looking statement, of course, but that's to be determined right now. Probably,
okay, interesting. That's great. And I think like the relationship you have with us and other vendors out there securing the data in and around things like malware is super important. So, one of those other calls to action out there for the listeners is, yes, really understand that shared responsibility model, really understand what Salesforce is providing to secure your data. And it is a lot. They provide quite a bit of native security controls to help. And then you have to look at the other pieces that are your responsibility around securing the data and things like malware protection.
Right.
That's something that's super important because that data that's coming into your Salesforce, if it wasn't scrubbed for malware, it needs to be, and that's that defense in depth that we were talking about. Get it scanned for malware as it's sitting in your Salesforce org. So
100%. RAG is uniquely vulnerable to indirect injections, right?
Exactly.
An attacker doesn't really need to be involved in a prompt. They just need to move the file up.
Right.
So, there's a lot more to think about now, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And those files, right? We're talking about unstructured data, which is a significant piece to the data cloud repository, right? I mean, or just Salesforce in general, tons and tons of unstructured data sitting in your Salesforce. You have to know who has access to it. You have to know who's been touching it. And if they're authorized users, you have to understand things like, hey, does my Salesforce org lack basic MFA, right? But you also have to understand is, if a user clicks on a file, is it going to unleash a ransomware attack, right? Or something like that. Right. So, and that's where malware protection comes into play.
100%.
So there's a lot of things to consider. But I'm glad, Doug, that you spent some time with us today to shed some light on all of this stuff. It's a huge and important topic. Yeah. I think the runway for agentic AI in the Salesforce world is kind of just starting. I know we're at Agent Force 3.0. Is that correct? Are we there?
Just about it.
So I mean, it's the runway is enormous. A lot of potential, but it does come with risk. So I hope did share a little bit of that risk. My call to action, Doug's call to action here for you folks on the podcast listening in is, really talk to your SecOps team, really understand how the data is being used in Salesforce, and then understand that shared responsibility model. Make sure that the security controls that are under your purview are being met properly. Doug, anything else you'd like to, words of wisdom before we sign off here?
Follow least privilege. Yeah. Just really drill down on that. It's so important. Understand public-private, what's public, what's private. And finally, stay up with regulations. Regulations are changing. HIPAA is changing. Some regulations are going to be rolled out where agents will be able to distribute, to act as a pharmacy, right? And give you prescriptions, right? So stay up to date with all that stuff. Stay up, and also, please, if you have any questions about Salesforce and how we deal with, agents and how agents works, please contact your account executive to get a hold of anybody on my team. We're happy to come in and discuss anything they may want to talk about when it comes to security around agents. Very, very, very cool. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate it, Doug. Thank you for your time. It's been great. And we're going to have another one coming up, in the next couple of months. This podcast series is going to keep going. So lots to discuss, many topics. I appreciate your time, Doug. Thank you, Raj.
Thanks for listening. Until next time.